All right, welcome to the show here, guys. And I'll tell you what, I'm feeling great on New Year's Day because one, I'm not hungover. That's a good thing. And two, we are 4-1 in our last 5 NFL tier package picks on brockpage.com. And if you want to see which one of these free YouTube picks on this video that I'm actually betting on personally, there's only one way to do that, and that's to sign up for my NFL tier package picks on brockpage.com. Now, we're also 6-3 in our last 9 NFL tier package picks in that very same category. And the link for my NFL tier package picks is located in the description section below. And with that, guys, let's go ahead and dive into it. The Falcons take on the Bills, 1 o'clock Eastern start time. Buffalo's minus 14, totals 44.5. Now, Buffalo's currently on a 2-game winning streak, and they've actually played incredible defense at Highmark Stadium this year. And as a matter of fact, they have the number 1 pass defense at home in the league. And they're allowing fewer points per contest at home than any other team in the NFL. Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, they have 10 interceptions between the two of them. 10 PBUs for Hyde, and a couple of fumble recoveries for Hyde as well. Meanwhile, linebacker Tremaine Edmonds, he leads the club in tackles with 97 of them. Meanwhile, offensively, the Bills are scoring 29 points a game, and they currently rank in the top 10 in the NFL in total yards per contest. Now, they're taking on an Atlanta team who failed to cover in 5 out of their last 7 ball games. And they've also done a pretty poor job of establishing the run game. As a matter of fact, Atlanta's they are second worst in the NFL in rush yards per game, as they're being held to just 86 yards per contest in that particular category. Meanwhile, defensively on the other side of the football, the Falcons are allowing 27 points per contest. Now, injury-wise, Davison and Moreau are questionable for the Falcons. Meanwhile, for Buffalo, Sanders, Beasley, Oliver, and Davis, they are questionable for them. When it comes to the total in this one, Buffalo's 4-3 to the under at Highmark Stadium. We're also going to see some very cold temperatures and possible snow in this ball game. It's going to be freezing in upstate New York. So the elements should very well play a factor, especially for an indoor team like Atlanta. And speaking of Atlanta, they saw 6 out of their last 7 fall under the posted total themselves. And that's in fair weather. So I'm going to lean toward Buffalo minus 14 and the under 44.5 in the tight window there. All right, next matchup, it is going to be Eagles versus the football team. And that's going to be a 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff. Now, Philadelphia's minus 4.5 with the total at 44. And the Birds are on a 3-game winning streak. And they also went 7-3 against the number in their last 10. The Eagles have established a dominant run game. They currently lead the NFL in rushing with 163 yards a game on the ground. The Phillies also averaging 27 points per contest, and they rank in the top 5 in fewest offensive turnovers. Now, defensively, on the other side of the football, Javon Hargrave has 7.5 sacks on the season, 8 tackles for loss, and 58 total tackles. Alex Singleton also has 129 tackles on the season himself, along with 4 PBUs and a pick 6. Philadelphia is currently in the top 5 in fewest yards allowed per play on the road. They're taking on a Washington club who lost their last 3 straight. They also have a losing record at home. And speaking of playing at home, this Washington offense is in the bottom 3 in offensive yards per play on their home field. Now, injury-wise, Jackson and Samuel are out. Sweat and Smith-Williams are questionable. Meanwhile, for the Eagles, Jackson, Dickerson, and Howard are questionable. Sanders is out. When it comes to the total in this one, Philadelphia saw their last 3 straight get over the posted number, 7-2 to the over in their last 9. Meanwhile, Washington saw their last 2 straight get over the total themselves, 60% to the over in their last 10 meetings with the Birds. I'm going to lean toward Philadelphia minus 4.5 and the over 44. Next ball game, it is going to be Jaguars versus the Patriots. 1 o'clock Eastern start time. New England's minus 16.5, totals 41. And although the Pats haven't played great at Gillette Stadium, they have successfully covered the point spread in 7 out of their last 9 ball games. The Patriots have done a real nice job of putting up points in Foxborough despite their home record. They're currently in the top 10 in home scoring, and they're also in the top 5 in offensive yards per play on their home field. Now, defensively, on the other side of the football, they're led by Matthew Judon, who has 12.5 sacks, along with 57 tackles. And speaking of tackles, linebacker Jawan Bentley has 88 tackles on the season himself, along with 5 TFLs and 3 forced fumbles. Now, they're taking on a Jacksonville team who lost their last 7 straight. I think we all know the story with Jacksonville. It's just an absolute dumpster fire. They also haven't won a road game yet. They have not won a game yet on the road. The Jags score fewer points per contest than any other team in the NFL. And they're also in the bottom 3 in turning the ball over. Meanwhile, defensively, the Jags are giving up nearly 27 points a game. And they currently rank dead last in takeaways. Now, injury-wise, Wilson, Jack, and Allen are questionable. O'Shaughnessy is out. Meanwhile, for the Pats, Hightower, Phillips, Jackson, Harris, Myers, Duggar, Barmore, and Stevenson, they're questionable for them. And of course, Nelson Aguilar, he's been ruled out for New England. Now, total-wise, 6 out of New England's last 10 ball games got over the posted number. They're also 5-3 to the over in their last 8 in Foxborough. Meanwhile, Jacksonville saw their last 2 straight get over the line themselves. I'm going to lean toward New England, minus 16.5, and the over 41. Next ball game, it is going to be Dolphins versus the Titans. 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff. Tennessee's minus 3, totals 40. The Tennessee Titans won 7 out of their last 10 ball games, and they also went 6-2 straight up on their home field. Tennessee's in the top 5 in rush yards per game, top 3 in offensive time of possession. Now, defensively, on the other side of the football, these guys are led by Kevin Byard, who's got 5 interceptions out of the secondary, 13 PDs, a pick 6, and a scoop and score. Meanwhile, Harold Landry, he has 11 sacks and 13 tackles for loss. This vicious Titans defense is second in the NFL in rush yards allowed per contest. They're taking on a Dolphins team who's done a poor job of establishing the run despite their recent success. The Finns are rushing for only 86 yards a game on the ground. And they're currently in the bottom 10 in offensive turnovers. And as good as this Miami defense has been here recently, they've given up a bunch of passing yards on the road. Now, injury-wise here, Wilson and Kinley are questionable. Meanwhile, for Tennessee, Long, Murchison, and Lawan are questionable for them. When it comes to the total in this one, Miami's gone 70% to the under in their last 10 outings. Meanwhile, Tennessee saw their last 3 straight fall under the line themselves. They also went 6-2 to the under at Nissan Stadium. I'm going to lean toward Tennessee, minus 3, and the under 40. Next game, Chiefs versus the Bengals, 1 o'clock Eastern start time. Kansas City's minus 4.5, totals 51. Kansas City's covered the number in their last 6 straight. 8-game winning streak for the Chiefs as well. Kansas City's currently leading the league in road passing as Patrick Mahomes has thrown for over 4,300 yards this year, along with 33 touchdown passes. Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, they each have over 1,000 yards receiving apiece, and 16 touchdowns between the two of them. Now, Kansas City currently leads the NFL in offensive yards per play. Meanwhile, defensively, Kansas City's allowing only 20 points a game. They currently rank in the top 5 in takeaways. Now, they're taking on a Cincinnati team who struggled stopping the pass this year themselves, As a matter of fact, the Bengals are in the bottom 5 in the league in pass defense. When it comes to covering the number, Cincinnati's covered the point spread in only 3 out of 8 home games. Now, injury-wise, Davis and Sample are out. Kareem and Wilson are questionable. Meanwhile, for the Chiefs, Edwards-Helaire is out. Niang is questionable for them. When it comes to the total in this one, Kansas City's last 3 straight got over the posted number. 4-2 to the over for the entire season on the road. Meanwhile, for Cincinnati on the other side of things, they went 6-3 to the over in their last 9 themselves. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward Kansas City minus 4.5 and the over 51. Actually sounded like a human just fell. Was that a human body that just fell?
What?
Did you fall on the ground?
No.
Okay.
I dropped something out of the fridge.
You dropped something out of the fridge. Darn it. Hate when that happens. Well, I know it's not the kid. It's just me and the wife tonight. Just me and her. Probably going to get some sex tonight. I got a good feeling about that. What do you mean? We're married. It's just a part of marriage. Well, no, it's not. It's not a part of marriage, is it? Yeah, for newlyweds. Anyway, next game, Giants-Bears, 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff. Chicago's -6, totals 36.5. But despite coming off a nice late-minute win against Seattle, the Bears have lost 8 out of their last 10 ball games, and they successfully covered the point spread in just 20% of those contests. The Bears are literally no threat to throw the football, as they currently rank dead last in the league in pass yards per game. Chicago's also in the bottom 5 in turning the ball over. Meanwhile, defensively, on the other side of things, as good as Chicago's been in certain areas, they've actually done little in creating opportunities, as they're currently in the bottom 3 in takeaways. Now, they're taking on a pretty bad New York Giants team who's having all kinds of problems moving the football themselves. Having said that, though, this New York defense is in the top 3 in fewest first quarter points allowed, and they're led by Xavier McKinney, who has 5 interceptions and 79 tackles. Meanwhile, linebacker Ty Crowder has 112 tackles on the year himself, along with 5 PDs and an interception. Now, injury-wise, Solder, Johnson, and Tony are questionable. Ross is out for New York as well. Meanwhile, for the Bears on the other side, Peters, Goldman, and Grant are questionable. Fields and Holtz, they're sitting this one out. Now, total-wise, 5 out of Chicago's last 7 ball games at Soldier Field fell under the posted number. Meanwhile, New York is 10-5 to the under for the entire season themselves. I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't think a lot of people are going to make this play, but I'm going to lean toward the New York Jets +6 and the under 36.5. Next ball game, it is going to be Buccaneers versus the Jets, 1 o'clock Eastern start time. Tampa Bay's -13, totals 45.5. Now, the Bucs are averaging 30 points a game, and they're currently leading the NFL in passing. Tom Brady's thrown for nearly 4,600 yards and 37 touchdowns. Meanwhile, defensively, Devin White has 122 tackles and 3.5 sacks on the year. And speaking of defense, not a lot of people talk about defense when they refer to Tampa Bay, but there's a lot of good things going on that defensive unit. The Bucs are allowing only 20 points a game, and they do a really nice job of stopping the run. They're giving up only 87 yards a game on the ground, and they also rank 6th in the NFL in takeaways. Now, they're taking on a Jets team. That sounds like mashed potatoes. I hear the thing whipping around. I think that's mashed potatoes. Anyway, sorry, ADD. They're taking on a Jets team who turns the ball over more than any other team in the NFL. And if offensive turnovers weren't bad enough, this Jets offense is scoring only 18 points a game. Now, defensively, New York's allowing more points per contest than any other team in the league as well. When it comes to the injury report, Smart and Crowder are questionable for New York. Meanwhile, for Tampa Bay, Pierre-Paul and Barrett, they are out. Winfield and Sherman are doubtful. Now, total-wise, the Bucs saw games with Buffalo, Indianapolis and New Orleans get over the posted total here recently. Meanwhile, for the Jets, 3 out of their last 4 got over the line themselves, 70% to the over in their last 10. Give me Tampa Bay minus 13, over 45.5. Next matchup, Raiders, Colts, 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff. Indiana's minus 8, totals 45. But as good as the Colts have been here lately, they're actually playing just .500 football at home this year. And even more concerning, the Colts have struggled somewhat stopping the pass at Lucas Oil Stadium. Now offensively, they also find themselves in the bottom 10 in the NFL in home passing. They're taking on a Raider club who won their last 2 straight. They also have a winning record on the road. Derek Carr is completing nearly 70% of his passes, and he's thrown for over 4,300 yards. Meanwhile, Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller, they have combined for nearly 1,600 yards receiving together, along with 8 combined touchdowns. Now, the Raiders have the number 5 pass offense in the NFL. And when it comes to the injury report, Hankins, Edwards, and Hobbs are questionable for Las Vegas. Meanwhile, for the Colts, Sendejo is out. Doyle, Fisher, Glowinski, Campbell, and Willis are questionable. When it comes to the total on this one, 5 out of the Colts' last 9 ball games got over the line. Meanwhile, Vegas saw games with Kansas City, Dallas, and Philadelphia get over the posted total themselves. I'm going to lean toward Las Vegas plus 8 and the over 45. Next matchup. It is going to be Rams versus the Ravens, 1 o'clock Eastern start time. LA's minus 6, totals 46.5. Now, the Rams won their last 4 straight. They also went 4-0 against the spread during that span. LA's currently leading the league in offensive yards per play, as Matthew Stafford's thrown for over 4,300 yards and 36 touchdowns. Now, wideout Cooper Kupp, he has over 1,700 receiving yards and 14 touchdowns. The Rams find themselves in the top 3 in the NFL in scoring per contest on the road. Meanwhile, defensively, they're in the top 5 in stopping the run away from home. They're going up against a Baltimore team who's really struggled slowing down the aerial attack themselves. As a matter of fact, the Ravens allow more pass yards per contest than any other team in the NFL. They're also in the bottom 3 in takeaways, as the Ravens do find themselves right now in the middle of a 4-game skid. Hello.
Are you ready for the plate?
Am I ready for dinner? No, I'm doing a video.
I meant after.
Oh, yeah, after. I still got I can eat it while I'm recording. Be like, what do they call that? Mukbang. Be like an ASMR. I don't think these guys want to see me do that. But I think I'm going to say I got about 16 to 17 more minutes to go.
That's fine.
All right. Do you want to feed me? On camera? No? Anyway, the Ravens allow more pass yards per contest than any other team in the NFL. They're also in the bottom 3 in takeaways. And I already said that. They find themselves in the middle of a 4-game skid. Now, injury-wise, Jackson, Ricard, Brown, Duvernay, and Hayes, they are questionable to play on Sunday. Meanwhile, Owe is doubtful and Powers is out. Meanwhile, for the Rams, Floyd, Havenstein, Noteboom, Rapp, and Rochelle are questionable for them as well. When it comes to the total on this one, LA's 6-2 to the over when traveling this year. Meanwhile, the Ravens saw 5 out of their last 7 in Baltimore get over the line themselves. I'm going to lean toward the LA Rams minus 6. And the over 46.5. Next ball game, Texans, 49ers, 4:05 East. San Francisco's minus 12.5, totals 43. But despite being the double-digit favorite in this one, San Francisco's got themselves a losing record at home this year. They also failed to cover in 4 out of those 7 contests at Levi's Stadium. The offense is in the bottom 10 in fourth quarter scoring on their home field. And they're also taking on a Houston team who won their last 2 straight. They scored 71 total points during that stretch. Now defensively, Jonathan Greenard has 8 sacks for the Texans, couple of forced fumbles, and 4 PBUs for the linebacker. Meanwhile, Kamu Grugier-Hill leads the club in tackles with 94 of them. Now, injury-wise, Taylor, Conley, Collins, Rivers, Martin, and Moore, they're listed as questionable. Meanwhile, for the Niners on the other side, Hurst, Greenlaw, and Alsher, they are out. Meanwhile, Jimmy G and Hufanga are questionable. Now, when it comes to the scoring in this one, San Francisco saw games with Seattle, Minnesota, and Arizona recently get over the line. Meanwhile, Houston saw their last 3 straight get over the total themselves. I'm going to lean toward Houston plus 12.5 in the over 43. I'm sorry, I just keep chuckling. Like, you'd think like a fat ass like me would be so happy when his wife says dinner's ready. And I'm like, no, get out of here. Like, go away. Like, that's not even believable. You see a husky guy like me, you'd think I'd be a lot more happy about dinner being ready. But no, you guys come first. Anyway, moving on. Broncos versus the Chargers, 4:05 Eastern start time. LA's minus 7.5, totals 45. But despite being favored in this one, the Chargers are on a 2-game losing streak, and they failed to cover in 7 out of their last 10 ball games. And as good as these guys have been offensively, this defensive unit has really let this organization down, as they're giving up nearly 28 points per contest. Now, the Chargers are also allowing over 140 rushing yards a game on the ground. They're taking on a Denver team who does like to run the football, and they also protect the rock quite well. They're currently 6th in the NFL in fewest offensive turnovers, and it's actually this Denver defense who's incredibly underrated. They lead the NFL in fewest points allowed per contest, and if anyone has the antidote for Justin Herbert, it could potentially be this Bronco secondary. They're currently in the top 5 in the NFL in pass defense. Justin Simmons has 5 interceptions on the year, along with 12 PDs. Meanwhile, Baron Browning has 53 tackles on the season, along with a couple of TFLs. And even though we won't be seeing Teddy Bridgewater starting at quarterback for Denver this Sunday, my lean on this game is solely based on the elite play of this Denver defense. Now, injury-wise, once again, Bridgewater is banged up. Looks like Drew Lock's going to get the nod. Once again, I'm really not all too concerned about the offensive end. Just as long as they're serviceable, I think the defense can carry them. Also, real quick, Jackson, Harris, Steven, Darby, Young, and Jones, they are also questionable for the Broncos. Meanwhile, for Los Angeles, Daniel, Lindsley, Bosa, Marshall, Tranquil, and Rumpf, they are questionable for them. And when it comes to the total in this one, LA's last 4 straight did get over the posted number, 7-2 to the over in their last 9. Meanwhile, Denver saw games with Detroit and Las Vegas get over the line themselves. I'm going to lean toward Denver plus 7.5 and the over 45. Next ball game, Panthers, Saints, 4:25 Eastern kickoff. New Orleans is minus 6.5, totals 37. And although Trevor Siemian's back in action for the Saints, I'm going to say with him or without him, the Saints have been one of the worst passing teams in the NFL this year. I don't care if Siemian plays or not. It doesn't matter who they put back there. These guys have not been throwing the ball well. They're throwing for just $187 per contest, and they rank second to last in total offensive yards per game. Now, New Orleans lost 6 out of their last 8 ball games, and defensively, as good as they've been in many different areas, they're also in the bottom 5 in defensive yards per play at home. Now, they're taking on a Carolina squad who's actually done a real nice job defensively when traveling. I know these guys have struggled this year, but defensively they've been really solid on the road. They're currently in the top 10 in fewest road points allowed, and they're also second in the NFL in pass yards allowed when traveling. Hassan Reddick has 11 sacks on the year, along with 12 tackles for loss. Meanwhile, Jeremy Chin has 103 tackles, along with 5 PBUs himself. This Carolina defense is in the top 3 in fewest yards allowed per play on the road. Now, injury-wise, Gilmore's out. Irving and Chandler are doubtful. Meanwhile, Melvin, Burris, Elflin, Brown, and Henderson, they are all questionable for the Panthers as well. Meanwhile, for the Saints on the other side, Jenkins, Ingram, Montgomery, Granderson, and Johnson are questionable. Smith is out. When it comes to the total in this one, the Saints' last 5 straight all fell under the number. Meanwhile, Carolina saw games with Tampa Bay, New England, and Atlanta fall under the line themselves. I don't think this is going to be a popular pick either, but I'm going to lean toward Carolina plus 6.5 in the under 37. Next matchup, it is going to be Lions versus the Seahawks, 4:25 Eastern kickoff. Seattle's minus 7.5, totals 41. Now, Seattle's lost 5 out of their last 7 ball games, and they successfully covered the point spread just twice during that stretch. The Seahawks have also got themselves just 2 wins at home, and they've allowed a ton of passing yards in front of their home fans. They're taking on a Detroit club who went 6-1 against the number in their last 7 outings. This has been a pretty good covering team this year. As a matter of fact, the Lions are covering the number in 67% of their ball games for the entire season. So if you've been backing Detroit this year, I know their straight up record sucks, but if you've been betting them on against the number, you've been making money. 67% against the number for the entire season. Charles Harris has 7.5 sacks on the year, along with double-digit tackles for loss and a couple of forced fumbles. Meanwhile, Tracy Walker has 82 tackles on the year, along with 5 PBUs. This Lions defensive unit is in the top 5 in fewest fourth quarter points allowed on the road. When it comes to the injury report, Kabinda is out. Okwara and DeAndre Swift, is questionable. Meanwhile, for Seattle, Collins, Shell, and Collier are questionable. Radigan is out. When it comes to the total in this one, Seattle's 11-4 to the under for the entire season. Meanwhile, Detroit is 6-2 to the under in their 8 road games this year themselves. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward Detroit plus 7.5 in the under 41. All right, next ball game. This is going to be a big one here. I'm talking about the Cardinals versus the Cowboys, 4:25 Eastern start time. Dallas is minus 5.5, numbers 52. But as good as the Cowboys have been here on their 4-game winning streak, just keep in mind that 3 of those victories were against the Giants and Washington twice. Not very good teams. They're not even putting out serviceable players right now. They've been banged up and they have COVID. And all those, although the Cowboys have been a sports bettor's dream with regard to covering the number this year, 2 out of their 3 failed covers this season did come at Jerry World. Now, there's really not many areas where I can nitpick. The Cowboys are really, really good, but they do tend to start slow defensively. And as a matter of fact, these guys are currently in the bottom 5 in first quarter points allowed. And of course, that's really bad news going up against this Arizona team, because they actually lead the NFL in first quarter scoring on the road. So you may see them get up by double digits early in this game. Kyler Murray's completing nearly 70% of his passes, and he's thrown for over 3,200 yards. Meanwhile, wideouts Christian Kirk and A.J. Green, they've combined for over 1,600 receiving yards and 8 touchdowns together. The Cardinals find themselves in the top 3 in the NFL in scoring on average per game away from home. Meanwhile, defensively, these guys allow just 20 points a game, and they rank in the top 10 in takeaways. Now, injury-wise, Phillips and Wilson are out. Moore, Allen, Connor, Baker, and Harris are questionable. Meanwhile, for the Cowboys, Lewis, Hardy, Mukamu, they are questionable for them. When it comes to the total in this one, sorry, I got itchy shins. My shins, they itch. Anyway, total-wise, Dallas saw a contest with Washington, Las Vegas, and New England get over the posted number. Meanwhile, their opponents saw 4 out of their last 7 get over the number themselves. I'm going to lean toward Arizona plus 5.5 and the over 52. And with that, guys, now it's time for our next and final free pick for the video. It is going to be Vikings versus the Packers, 8:20 Eastern kickoff. Green Bay is minus 13, totals 42.5. And aside from winning their last 4 straight, these guys are a perfect 7-0 at the frozen tundra this year. Now, on a side note here, guys, real quick, it's going to be like extremely cold Sunday night at Lambeau. A couple of these websites, they actually have it listed in single digits by kickoff. It's going to be incredibly freezing. They don't call it the frozen tundra for nothing. But I'll tell you this much, regardless of the temperature, guys like Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams, they've certainly been unfazed in the elements at home over the years. These guys know how to play in the cold. And as far as this year's concerned, the Pack's currently in the top 5 in home scoring. Now, Aaron Rodgers has thrown for nearly 3,700 yards and 33 touchdowns. Now, I'm not going conspiracy on you. Keep an eye on him. You never know. He could turn up a positive test. I'm sure the media would love it if 2 unvaccinated quarterbacks both missed important divisional games at the same time in the same game. I'm not going conspiracy. I'm just throwing it out there. So keep an eye on him. Meanwhile, Davante Adams, he's caught 106 balls for nearly 1,400 yards and double-digit touchdowns. And when it comes to the defensive play of Green Bay, they have a top 10 pass defense, and they rank in the top 10 in fewest points allowed at home. Now they're taking on a Minnesota club who's going to work without Kirk Cousins. He's infected with the virus. Hopefully he gets better. But even when he was healthy, the Vikes have played their worst football on the road, losing 5 of 8 away from their home field. This Minnesota defense has had a real tough time stopping the run on the road, and they're also in the bottom 10 in pass defense. Now, injury-wise, once again, Cousins and Pierce are out. Conklin, Dantzler, and Surratt are questionable. Meanwhile, for Green Bay, Bakhtiari, Turner, and Alexander are out. King, Valdez-Scantling, and Lancaster are questionable. When it comes to the total in this one, Green Bay went 60% to the under in their last 10 ball games. They also went 60% to the under for the entire season. Meanwhile, Minnesota saw contests with Chicago, Dallas, and the LA Chargers fall under the line themselves. I'm going to lean toward Green Bay, minus 13. In the under 42.5. And with that, guys, it's time for our big finale. It's time for our quick pick recap, powered to you by my website at brockpage.com, where we are currently 4-1 in our last 5 NFL tier package picks. I like Buffalo minus 14, under 44.5. Philadelphia minus 4.5, over 44. New England minus 16.5, over 41. Tennessee minus 3, under 40. Kansas City minus 4.5, over 51. New York Giants plus 6, under 36.5. Tampa Bay minus 13, over 45 and a hook. Las Vegas plus 8, over 45. LA Rams minus 6, over 46.5. Houston plus 12.5, over 43. Denver Broncos plus 7.5, over 45. Carolina plus 6.5, under 37. Detroit plus 7.5, under 41. Arizona plus 5.5, over 52. And before I give you my next and final free pick for the video, one final reminder that we are also 6-3 in our last 9 NFL tier package picks on brockpage.com as well. I'm going to lean toward the Green Bay Packers minus 13 and the under 42.5. And real quick, guys, got to throw a shout out to my man Stephen Lewis out there. Haven't seen you, Steve, in a long time, so it's great to see you in the comment section below. And Happy New Year to you, and I appreciate the kind words in the comment section. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on brockpage.com. Now, guys, this is really important. This is today, not only New Year's Day, But this is a max value Saturday. And what I mean by that is this. I utilize the Patreon platform, for my website. Patreon is a crowdfunding website, and the way they go about billing customers is they bill you the day you sign up, and then the first of every month following that, if you stay opted in. So what happens is if you end up signing up for a membership on my website today, you're going to get billed today, and then you're not going to get billed again until February 1st. So if you sign up for a package today, you're going to get access to those picks all the way through the end of January. So it's certainly your best value. I always tell folks in every single video, the earlier in the month you sign up, the better. And there's nothing earlier than the first of the month. That's as early as you can get. And real quick, guys, if you want to get access to all my picks, if you want to get access to every single pick that I give out on that website, you may want to think about signing up for the board member package, because board members get access to every single tier. They get access to every single pick that I give out on that site all the way through the end of December. But most importantly, guys, I got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. I really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. And with that said, guys, happy Saturday to you. Happy New Year's Day to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at brockpage.com.